My stepbrother would leave his kids with me every afternoon and go off to who knows where, but I called his wife, and now, according to my family, I'm responsible for their divorce. Hi, this is my first time posting on Reddit. Please ignore any formatting or typographical errors before getting into this. My stepbrother, Aaron, who is 46 years old, got married 8 years ago and has 2 kids. His oldest daughter is 5 years old and his son is barely 3. I'm 34 female and have never been very close to him since we didn't grow up together. My parents separated when I was very young and had joint custody of me. My dad started dating my stepmother when I was 17, so by then, I was already quite grown, and the same went for Aaron. That's why we never felt close, and we never lived together as a family at any point. By the time my stepmother moved in with my dad, I had already gone to college. I was lucky enough to get a job right after, so I just moved forward, and I've been living on my own ever since. If I'm being honest, I have no issues with my stepmother, and the same goes for Aaron, but I wouldn't exactly consider them my family because we aren't that close. They are my dad's family, and I respect them for that, but that's all. However, as I said, we have never been on bad terms. Recently, Aaron moved to my city with his family 10 days ago. He has a new project he's working on here, and will be living here for maybe a year or more. It was also quite convenient for his wife since her parents also live here, and because her father is quite ill, she could stay with her family during the day until Aaron returned from work. My dad told me he wanted me to guide him and help him settle in, and so I did. I assumed that after that my responsibilities would be over since I was just trying to be nice. But for some reason, Aaron assumed that I was always available for him and started leaving his kids with me every afternoon. This started almost 7 days ago. He would simply show up at my house with his kids, since I'd given him my number and address in case he needed help with something, and ask me to watch them for an hour or so, saying he would be back as soon as possible. He told me he had urgent work at the office, so he had to go back. And since his wife had decided to spend the afternoons with her parents, due to her father's deteriorating health, he couldn't expect her to watch the kids either. They were new here, so they didn't have a nanny and were relying on me. To be honest, I'm not very fond of kids, but since he had work and was new in town, I agreed to help him until he found a nanny. I wasn't happy with this arrangement at all because, even though I work from home, it's still work, and when I finish, I really don't feel like doing anything other than being alone. The kids are nice, and I have to give credit where it's due. Aaron never left the kids at my house for more than an hour and a half. He was always very punctual in picking them up and would thank me for taking care of them. But this started happening every single day, and for the past 7 days, I hadn't had a moment to myself in the afternoons. 2 days ago, I even told Aaron that he needed to find a nanny because I couldn't do this every day, and he promised me he would. I had plans to go out with my friends in the afternoon because it was Sunday, and I had even told Aaron about it in the morning. I told him that I wouldn't be able to watch his kids that afternoon, even though it was Sunday, and I knew his work didn't require him to go in on Sundays. But just to be sure, I had told him. Then at the usual time, my doorbell rang and I had just started doing my makeup. When I went to the door, I already had a speech prepared in my head, and I knew that as soon as I opened it, I would tell Aaron that I couldn't watch his kids today because I had already told him about my plans. But I never got the chance to do that because he simply left his kids at my doorstep. And as soon as I opened the door to tell him I wouldn't be able to watch them, he drove off in his car and left me with the kids. It was pretty sneaky of him, I have to admit. He stayed outside my house in his car just long enough to see me open the door, and then he left. He left a note with his daughter that said, "Sorry, but that meant nothing to me, because now I had to cancel the plans I had made." I was really upset and even angrier because he had tried to trick me. I tried calling him to come back and pick up the kids, but his phone was off. So, in my anger, I decided to call his wife. I had never interacted with her much. I had only met her at their wedding and then a few times during the holidays, but a few days ago I got her number when they moved here. So I called her and told her that for the past week, Aaron had been dropping his kids off at my house at the same time every day and then disappearing for about an hour. Even though I knew I had agreed to watch them until they found someone else, I couldn't do it on weekends too. I told her that he had left the kids at my house even after I told him I wouldn't be available to watch them today, and I was really upset about all of this. I told her I understood that they were new in town and needed time to settle in, but this wasn't the right way to go about it, and I couldn't keep supporting this, so I needed her to come pick up her kids. She didn't say much, just okay, and then she told me she'd be over in a bit to get the kids. After about half an hour, she showed up at my door. She was very serious, and we didn't talk much. She took the kids and left, and then I didn't check my phone because I went out drinking with my friends. I only do this kind of thing once or twice a month, so I prefer to stay off my phone and just live in the moment. Last night, my phone was on Do Not Disturb, so I didn't get any notifications from anyone, and I only checked it this morning. I had a ton of missed calls, messages, and voicemails from everyone, or, well, a huge amount, from my dad, Aaron, even my stepmother, which was strange because she and I don't usually talk much unless it's an emergency. I was really confused, so before calling anyone back, I decided to check some of the messages they had sent me. Most of them were accusations that I was an idiot and that I had no reason to talk to Aaron's wife about what was going on. I was still very confused, so I decided to call my dad first. As soon as I called, he started yelling at me, saying that I had ruined Aaron's marriage. Apparently, even then, I didn't understand what he was talking about. Finally, my dad told me that because of my phone call, Aaron's wife found out that he wasn't going to the park with the kids like he had been telling her. He had actually been dropping them off at my house and going off on his own. On top of that, Aaron had also lied to me about going back to the office for work. After my call, his wife contacted one of his coworkers, who told her that no one in his department really needed to go in on Sundays, and he definitely hadn't been there. To make sure, she even went to the office herself to see if his car was there, and it wasn't. She even spoke with 2 cleaning ladies who were leaving the office building, and they said that no one really goes to work after hours. Even specified what kind of car Aaron drives, and they made it clear that for the past 7 days he had arrived at work on time and left exactly at 5, but he never returned after leaving, as he had been saying he needed to do all week. They also told her that Aaron had just started working there, so his workload wasn't as heavy as everyone else's, and he could finish his work within office hours and leave on time. They didn't know why he would have needed to come back at all, let alone on a weekend. Clearly, he had been lying, and now, because of the phone call I made, his lies had been exposed, and she confronted him. But he refused to tell her the truth, so she threatened to leave him and take the kids. Last night, she had already moved out with the kids to her parents' house, and now he was in a mess. I also found it quite strange that he needed to return to work every day after leaving at the end of the day for an entire week. That really didn't make sense to me, but I didn't question it because it didn't seem like my business, and I have a lot on my plate to worry about, so why should I care? But now, after hearing all this from my dad, I realized that Aaron had lied about a lot of things to a lot of people, and since he was getting caught, he was blaming it all on me. So I told my dad that while it was very sad that his wife had decided to end their marriage because he had been lying to her, even though it was exactly what he deserved, and I would probably have done the same in her place, I didn't see how I had anything to do with it. My dad told me that if I had never made that call to his wife, none of this would have happened. It was quite exasperating and unreasonable, so I told him I had to make that call because I have a life, and I have my own plans, and I wasn't going to apologize for living my life on my own terms. But he started saying that I had betrayed my family and that I should have just kept the kids and told Aaron when he came to pick them up, instead of contacting his wife and making problems on my own. It was really annoying because he was trying to blame me for this whole situation, so I got angry and told him that I wasn't the one lying to my partner, so if anything, he should be the one at fault. Right now, they should be scolding Aaron, not me. But he kept saying that what I did wasn't right for the family, and that I needed to apologize to Aaron because he was really upset about what was happening. I told him I didn't owe anyone an apology, and he should probably be telling all this to Aaron right now because he is the one who needs to sort out his life. Then my dad said that I was his family, and that this wasn't what families do to each other. I told him that Aaron was definitely not my family, just Dad's family. That took him by surprise, and he asked me if I really didn't consider Aaron my family, and I reiterated that I didn't. Then he asked if I even considered his wife family, and I still said no because that was the truth. I didn't grow up with them. They never bothered to build a strong relationship with me, and I was fine with that, but at the same time it also meant that I didn't consider them my family. It was very simple. I really don't think I said anything offensive. It's not like they consider me very close to them either, so what's the problem? But after saying that, my dad started sounding very curt, and told me that if that's what I thought, then we had nothing more to talk about, and he hung up on me. I was genuinely confused, and a couple of minutes after that phone call ended, he sent me a text saying that he had always hoped I would respect him and the people he loved, and at least give them a chance. But obviously, I had made my decision and decided that I wasn't going to respect my stepmother and stepbrother, and he also owed them certain things. So he had decided not to talk to me either because what I had done to Aaron was unacceptable. He also mentioned the fact that Aaron wasn't even causing me much inconvenience. I was working from home anyway, and he always dropped the kids off after I finished my work and picked them up in just an hour. So what I did wasn't nice, and now I don't even understand what to do. Was I wrong for calling my stepbrother's wife to come pick up her kids because I didn't want to take care of them? Update 1. I decided not to apologize to Aaron because my dad was just trying to guilt trip me, and now I see that clearly. It's been a few days since we last talked, and I haven't received any messages from him since then. I know for sure that he's very mad at me, but there's not much I can do about it. I talked to my mom about it, and she told me that my dad was being unreasonable. She almost never has anything bad to say about my dad because they are still on good terms. But this time she said that my father was acting irrationally and told me she would talk to him. Yesterday, she called me in the afternoon and told me that she had spoken to my dad and that they had ended up fighting over this because she had taken my side. He had told her that she was encouraging something wrong, so they ended up fighting, and now they aren't talking either. The fight must have been serious because when my mom called me yesterday, she was really mad. Given her temperament, she rarely takes that tone with anyone. But when she was talking to me, she said she wasn't going to talk to my dad again until he apologized to me, because the things he had said were completely illogical and unfair. Apparently, he had called me a spoiled child and said that I had turned into someone who couldn't care about anyone but myself. And that's why I ratted out my stepbrother without even considering the consequences of what I was doing. When my mom tried to defend me, my dad interrupted her and yelled, saying that if she was on my side here, then they had nothing more to talk about because he didn't want to talk to anyone who was encouraging my behavior. When my mom told me all this, I got really mad. Although I had initially thought about forgiving my dad if he came around and apologized to me, now I'm not so sure. I don't think I'm going to talk to him, even if he does apologize, because the things he said were not only untrue, but, more importantly, also very hurtful. I'm not a child, so he can't just say whatever he wants and get away with it. I'm a grown woman, I have my own life, and if my dad is going to be rude to me, I'm just going to cut him out of my life and move on. Update 2. A lot has happened since my last update. Last night, I finally received a message from my dad. It had been almost 2 weeks since we last spoke, and I hadn't interacted with him at all during that time. My mom had told me a lot about the things he had been saying about me, and after that, I had no interest in talking to him. But I had forgotten to block him, so he sent me a message saying that Aaron's wife had apparently served him with divorce papers just a few days ago and he was devastated. That really annoyed me because I didn't understand why he was giving me an update on the situation when I hadn't even asked about it. I knew he was trying to make me feel guilty and make it seem like it was all my fault, so I just ignored the message and blocked his number after that. But then he called me from his work number and asked if I had no shame or feelings at all because my brother was getting divorced because of me, and yet I couldn't even apologize, let alone try to fix the situation. At that moment, I was really upset with him, so I told him that there was absolutely nothing in this situation that I should feel ashamed of or even think that I deserved to feel guilty about. I also told him that I still wasn't going to apologize. Aaron was getting divorced because of his own lies, and I didn't make him do that. I had only inadvertently exposed his lies. It wasn't even on purpose, and I didn't even see that as a mistake because if he was behaving that way, he probably didn't deserve his wife. My dad started talking about family loyalty again, and I cut him off, saying that I had heard the things he had said to my mom about me. Beyond this point, I really had no interest in talking to him any further. I told him that if he wanted to support a liar, that was his personal choice, but he shouldn't expect me to do the same. Because, like I had said before, I didn't consider them my family, so family loyalty was out of the question. They were his family. He could be loyal to them if he wanted to, but he should also consider the fact that Aaron was a liar. And if he was yelling at my mom for encouraging my behavior, I could question him for encouraging Aaron's behavior as well. He started stammering after that, so I took the opportunity to hang up on him. Then I blocked the number he had called me from. But something tells me he won't stop here and will keep calling me over and over until I apologize or at least do something about the situation. Anyway, even though I hadn't heard from my dad again since that call last night, I got a visit from Aaron this morning at around 7. Normally, I'm already awake at that time to start my day with a run and a workout, and I was just about to head out when the doorbell rang. When I saw it was Aaron, I got really annoyed. I told him it was way too early in the morning for any drama and that I didn't want to interact with him right now. I could see through the window that he looked like a mess. His shoulders were slumped, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days, so he definitely wasn't bringing good news. It was going to be another painful discussion about his life. I didn't want that so early in the morning, so I asked him to please leave. I didn't want to be rude to him because honestly, he just looked pitiful. But he told me that he had something very important to discuss with me, and that he just wanted me to open the door for him once, and after that, he wouldn't bother me anymore. When he spoke, he was very calm, unlike my dad, who'd been yelling at me since this whole fight started. Also, I really felt sorry for him, so I let him in. It was very awkward, and I told him that I was sorry to hear what was happening in his life, but I said it very carefully so that he wouldn't think I was actually apologizing for calling his wife, because I wasn't. I didn't even want him to think that by accident and pass that message along to my dad. Anyway, He told me that there had been a lot of discussions about the divorce and everything in the past few days, but in the end, his wife had blocked him and served him the papers. I already knew that. But then he mentioned that he had been thinking about not contesting the divorce. That surprised me a little because if he had been fighting for his marriage until now, I didn't understand why he was giving up. But that wasn't my business, so I just waited for him to get to the point of his visit. Finally, he told me that in the divorce petition, his wife was asking for a lot because she thought he was having an affair. Something that, according to her, explained why he had been lying to everyone about where he was going after dropping off his kids at my house. I didn't ask about it because, again, it wasn't my business. Finally, he told me that the reason he had come to see me was that he wanted me to take his side in the divorce. He went on to say that all I had to do was record a statement for him, saying that he was a good father and that, except for the day I called his wife, there had never been any issues with watching his kids, that he had always been punctual with drop-off and pickup times, so he had never really inconvenienced me. Honestly, I wouldn't have minded saying that, but it bothered me that he was claiming he wasn't cheating on his wife. If he wasn't, then what was he doing? Also, I just didn't feel like getting involved in any of this. So I told him that I genuinely wished him luck with the divorce, but I wasn't going to get involved directly. Aaron got really upset with me and said that since he was in this situation because of me, the least I could do was this small favor for him. When he said that, I very politely reminded him that he wasn't in the situation because of me, but because he had lied to his wife and left his kids at my house without even bothering to make sure I was okay with it. He had the decency to look embarrassed, but he still said that he knew he had messed up and was already paying the price for it. He just needed me to do him this one last favor. I told him I'd think about it, but I only said that to get him off my back at that moment because I just wanted some time to myself. Then I stood up, signaling that it was time for him to leave, but he just sat there on my couch. Then, after almost 10 seconds, he finally revealed the reason he had been absent those days. Apparently, he hadn't been going to see another woman. He'd been visiting his half-sister, who also happened to be my half-sister. I was genuinely shocked when he said that, and I immediately accused him of lying to me. But when he looked up, he told me that this was the reason I hadn't been told anything until now. He said that my stepmother and my dad had a child together, and that their affair had been going on long before the divorce. For context, my parents had been divorced for 28 years, and this half-sister Erin was referring to was 32. But since my stepmother and my dad weren't ready to end their respective marriages at the time, they decided to pretend the baby was her husband's. However, her biological father eventually found out the child wasn't his and that she had been having an affair, so he left, and they got divorced. But no one ever told my mom about it. As for the baby, they gave it up for adoption, and that was it. Until now, only my mom and I had been in the dark about these things, and my dad got really lucky when my mom herself suggested getting a divorce 2 years after my dad got my stepmother pregnant. She said she wasn't happy in that marriage and wanted to move on with her life. The situation resolved itself, and to make sure things didn't seem suspicious, my dad kept his relationship with my stepmother a secret for the next several years until I turned 17, and they finally got married. It was a brilliant plan, I have to admit, no harm, no foul. But recently, Aaron found out about our half-sister and decided he wanted to build a relationship with her, which is why he had been visiting her. His wife had been contemplating divorce, but ultimately decided to go through with it because she still wasn't completely convinced that he wasn't lying to her. And now, he was asking me for help with this because he didn't know anyone here who could help him. But I told him that after everything I had just discovered, the only thing I could offer him was luck. It was a lot to process, so I told him I needed to think it over and that I'd talk to him later. Then, when he saw that I was truly shocked by my dad's dishonesty, he finally left and told me he was sorry I had to find out this way because it was a big thing, but he really had no other choice. Anyway, since then, I haven't done anything because everything is very confusing for me right now. I can't figure out a way to tell my mom about this, but I know I'll have to. I don't even think I've fully come to terms with all of it myself, but the photos and evidence Aaron showed me were pretty solid, and I can't deny it. So, that's it. Update 3. Hi, it's been a couple of weeks since my last update. Many of you might be wondering if I ended up telling my mother, and yes, I did. I told her everything I had discovered. At first, just like me, she refused to believe it, but I showed her the evidence I had. After a conversation with my father, she realized it was true. Since then, we've cut ties with everyone. I'm not talking to my dad, and I also told Aaron that I wouldn't help him with his divorce. I just don't want anything to do with that side of the family, and I don't know if I'll reach out to my sister. For now, everything is too recent for me to process. My mom and I are keeping to ourselves, and she is the only family I have right now. This whole thing really sucks, but I'm trying to move forward little by little and rebuild my trust in people. Update 4. I'm writing this update so soon after the last one because I have a lot to share, starting with the fact that everything Aaron told me was a lie. He was having an affair. It turns out that all the photos and proof were completely fake, and I found out when I contacted my supposed half-sister. She thought I'd be mad at her for being the product of my father's infidelity, but I was just curious. She lived in my city, so it was easy to go see her with the information Aaron had given me, her information, but instead of telling me she was his mistress, she told me she was my half-sister, along with some fake documents she had made for me, all so that I would lie to his wife. His plan was for me to say all those things in the divorce mediation that he wanted so he could get his wife back, because even though he was having an affair with this woman, the truth is that after everything that happened, she was also leaving him. She had no idea he had a family, so when he stopped showing up to their dates, so to speak, everything unraveled and both women found out he was a liar. The worst part is that Aaron had requested a job transfer to this city to be with her. She had recently moved here as well for a job opportunity, and she had told him it was best to end things because a long-distance relationship wouldn't work well. But this idiot decided to move too, with his family, so he could see her every day. That's why the punctual schedules and everything. Because he was going to his girlfriend's house, doing his thing, and then heading back home. She had even started to suspect something was off because they always met at the same time, and he always had to rush out. They never went on dates or out to eat, but I guess since it was the first week, he just expected things to settle down later and for him to have more time for that. Luckily, he got caught first. But that wasn't all this woman told me. She also said that my stepbrother had gone to her to try and convince her of the same thing, to lie and say she was my half-sister so they could keep seeing each other, which was a pretty bad plan because there were two women involved, her and me, who weren't willing to go along with any of it. He even involved my father, who had cheated on my mother with my stepmother. That part was true, which is why he was willing to cover for a cheater like my stepbrother. That's why he lied to my mom. After all, he wasn't with her anymore, so it's not like he had to deceive her about all this. So now there are even more reasons to have no contact with my father, who is still blocked and will remain that way. I also reached out to my sister-in-law, or I don't even know what to call her now because, as a woman, I understand how painful all of this must be. I even offered to babysit her kids if she ever needed to run errands or anything, but she thanked me and said I had already helped her enough. Besides, she has a nanny for that now. And that's everything. A full-on disaster courtesy of my stepbrother, who can't keep it in his pants.